That's a
I
good thing to be called, right?
yeah. I well, yeah. I mean, I never really thought about it. But one friend in particular, she would always say that. Okay, let me make sure this is lit. Um, but yeah, that's what she refers to me as, the king of no fucks given, something like that. But to me, that you reach a point where it's an all or nothing proposition.
Yeah.
Uh,
Do you
you
want
know,
to do you want to attract people that love old Todd, or do you want to attract people that love authentic Todd?
yeah. Well, I think that's pretty much been my ticket the whole time.
Yeah.
And I'm usually the first one to go down the chute. Okay, there you are. Boom. I just tagged you. Okay, here we go. It's been an exciting few days, and now this is the only show we're doing today.
Cool.
We have uh, we have quite a few things lining up, but we got Holly back today, and she was on what just about a week ago, right? When was it?
1027.
10/27. Okay, so yeah, roughly a week ago. Yeah, we had a great show. In fact, all the shows lately have been just off the hook, and most of them are carrying, in my opinion, most of them that seem to be coming on are just like you. They're lit. They've been lit for a long time, and they're kind of like coming out in a
Yeah.
way that I haven't seen before, but it feels organic and it feels right. So
Yeah.
you mentioned, well, you put a post up in regard to, and welcome back. Thank
Thank
you for
you.
coming. I need to get in touch with your husband, by the way.
You do, yeah.
Did I send him a friend request, or am I having a deja vu?
He is not on social
Oh,
media.
that's what I thought. Okay, it was somebody else. Okay,
Yeah.
but yeah. So you put up a post with some specifics. I'm just going to give you the hot potato and let you take over and see which direction you want to go.
Oh, you want me to talk about what I put in the post today?
Yeah, I mean,
And
if
what
you
I
want
put,
to.
okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I just,
I mean, that's a big deal. I mean, you touched on it in
yeah,
the previous episode, and I didn't really understand. I did get it when you said it, but reading through that commentary with that post, I realized the depth of it. Not so much with what occurred, because you have probably come across other people as well, including yourself, who've had miraculous, instantaneous healing, weird stuff that happens to the
right.
weird people that we are. But picked up on it, what I picked up on the post was what it meant to you. I could feel it, like it was something that was very, very deep within you. Like it's so much more than just the words in the story. You're right. I mean,
Yeah.
am I right about that, or
Yeah, for
am I
sure.
okay?
Yeah, so we were talking last time just about April of 22. April of 22 was so powerful. And I talked about what transpired around um, my breast implants from a cancer surgery in, I put 2002 today, and I went back and corrected it. It was 2000. So
Okay.
2000, I had a reconstructive surgery after cancer, and it was 2022. Just to go kind of briefly back into what I said last time, it was 2022 April. It was 4/8 of 22, and I was just really hyper focused on embodying every cell of my being, like embodying my bone marrow, embodying my blood, everything, right? And I thought about the breast implants and the fact that they were not organic material. And I thought, how am I going to embody something that's not organic material? And so I just started praying while I was in the bathroom, and really was praying not to remove them from my body, because at that time I didn't have the awareness that something that profound could happen for me.
Okay.
I had made it rain. My husband got me on video on a day that there was no rain forecasted. I went out, I started calling to the sky, something I don't even know. I was
Now
lying
this
on
is at
my
the same
back.
time in 2002.
Yeah, it was 2022 is
I'm
what it
sorry,
was. Yeah.
2022. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, and so I'd seen miraculous things. It's like somebody said, "Oh, you have all the elements with you. You've actually worked with the elements in past lives. You've made it rain." And so after that, I thought, well, then let's go see. And so I went outside and I swept off the deck and I lied down and I didn't tell my husband what I was doing or anything. And he was in the bathroom and just heard, he said, the loudest rain he had ever heard. And, we didn't have rain forecasted that day. And it wasn't here, this was in Eugene. And so he walks out to see what it is. And because he walked out, our camera caught it. It's like he triggered the camera, so the camera caught it. And when he came out, I had my arms up like this and my legs up because the rain was so powerful. And it's on video, me getting up and everything beneath me is dry when I get up. So I had seen miracles like this. I knew there was some magical stuff happening, but I did not expect when I started clearing my implants. I asked to clear the energy of the insurance company, clear the energy of the doctor, clear the energy of the manufacturer. This is where I was thinking because I thought, they're inorganic. I'm not going to be able to embody them, but maybe I can just clear the energy off them, right? So I did this on 4/8, and then on 4/11, it was at night, and it was when I just had this big download coming, and we'd have to check Travis's notes about what it was specifically because he kept notes. Like when stuff like that would come, when information was coming through, I would just say it and he would type it. And I had my girlfriend on the phone on speaker, and Travis was sitting next to me. We were sitting on the bed in our master bedroom. And I all of a sudden it felt like I had beings around me and like touching me, touching my body, and not in an intrusive way or anything, but I could feel this energy and I felt it on my back, I felt it on my sides, I felt it on my breasts, and I really felt it in my hips. So it was like really from here to my root. And and I was sitting there and I started feeling funky and I asked Travis and my girlfriend, I said, "Are you guys feeling anything right now?" And Travis said no. I wasn't panicked or anything. I think I was just kind of in shock. And I said, "Something's happening to me right now." I said, "Something's happening to my boobs." And and as I said this, I had this like really intense pulling up and down through my center channel. It was like this pulling up and down, like I felt it so powerful. And I felt all of this electricity going down my thighs into my feet, and all of this electricity going up through my head at the same time. And as soon as that happened, I said to both of them, I said, "I think my breast implants are gone." And I got up from the bed and I went into the bathroom and I took off my clothes and they were gone. And I don't mean they were gone like they were silicone because they were done for a cancer surgery like back then because it was 2000. Unless you were having reconstructive surgery, if I would have gone in and just wanted, my breast changed, I would have had to have saline implants because you could get old implants replaced and get silicone, or you could get silicone if it was for breast reconstructive surgery, like after cancer. And so it was silicone. And they were gone, and my natural breasts were back. And, I called my husband, who obviously was happy to inspect, and both of us were just in complete shock, like in shock and awe, really. And since then, I've been seen by doctors. I had an osteopath I worked with for like 6 months, and I had to show her my I had a CT scan in 2016 looking at my heart, because I had some autoimmune stuff come up in 2016. And when they looked at my heart, they noted on that report bilateral breast implants, because I don't have any evidence of having implants in my body. And so this was such a profound, it would be like, you having a rod in your arm or something, and the rod in your arm just disappears, right? It was such a profound experience that I couldn't deny it,
Well, how
right?
could you? How could you? And
Right,
you even have witnesses.
right. And so, and I know, you and I talked just a little bit. I was raised, my family's from the South. My dad was a deacon in the church. My mom was an evangelist and a gospel singer. I accepted Christ when I was 4 years old. And so, I was raised, just, I was raised really believing miracles were a thing of the past. And I don't mean because my parents didn't say miracles aren't for you or anything, but the religious upbringing I had brought so much guilt and shame with it that I wouldn't have been able to fathom that it was available to me, right? And so I talked to you about my sister not crossing and my sister being in my back and all that, and she was cleared. So that showed me that, you know, what I'd been raised with was false. If you accept Christ, she accepted Christ like I did. And so I already knew that was false. When this happened, it took my faith in a creator that loves us and desires for us to thrive to, I mean, a level infinitely higher. And it completely opened my eyes to what's available here. What is available here to us, right? And I feel like, I was so fervently praying and seeking and meditating and asking, to be of service to others. The stuff I was asking for, that was for myself, really was in an effort to, like, I wanted to be a clear and neutral channel for spirit. I wanted to be that clear and neutral channel. It's so funny, I'm getting tender about it. But just for that love to flow through me to everything, unimpeded and without prejudice.
I think
Right.
that's yeah, because what I notice is like because I've obviously heard and had some experience on my own with things like this. This is very, very deep. It's very potent. Um, and so what I notice is like, okay, one, well, what you're saying is you weren't just asking for yourself. Okay.
Right.
So that's one thing I know, right? So there's the Trinity energy because you're asking to serve and you want to be in the optimum so you can deliver the optimum and share the
Right.
optimum. And then the other thing where you were basically blessing the insurance company, the everything involved that was, let's just say, non-organic,
Right.
and then and then of course the persistence of it, because the emotional balance somehow or another must be the aligner. These things, for these things to happen, the heart and the mind kind of going boom, right?
Right.
So that's, I think that's a really, really powerful testimony, um, because of the methodology, right? Like you weren't seeing anything as antagonistic or outside of you, right? Like in the case with the implants, you were saying, well, this isn't organic, so
Right.
how do I do this? But you weren't saying, damn, damn this and damn
Yeah,
that.
yeah. No,
Yeah,
not
so
at all.
that's a powerful thing. And I know I had an experience like that years ago when I first rewoke, and it wasn't a medical related. It was six police officers in a
Wow.
hotel room. Yeah, but I was homeless, and so they came in. They had a warrant. They came in, and it was all kind of shocking. And so I'm sitting on the bed. I just had put a pair of pants on. That's all I had on, and I'm sitting there handcuffed, and they pull my briefcase out, and my resume fell out of it. And they started reading it, and they were like, because I had a long distinguished corporate career, and they were like, "What happened to you?" They're like, just started kind of messing with me. And so I just immediately went into uh, blessing them and praying for their families,
Yeah.
and blessing their ignorance in terms of what my life had been and what was going on in my life and the things that were happening. And basically what happened was I could have, with what was, uh, how do I say this? Well, it's got to be transparent, right? Uh, I was in possession of some narcotics, and so I had enough on me. I could have gone to prison for 10 years.
Wow.
And the crazy thing that happened was that there was a sergeant there, and they found the stuff. And I said, like I don't even know. I was just sitting there, and I said, test it, whatever you want to do. I don't care. I was at that point.
Yeah.
And so they said to the sergeant, "Hey," he said, "Go, we can test it." He said, "No, he's got enough problems. Just put it back in the bag and leave it alone." I'm convinced that those silent prayers, like you were talking about, and that that fervent emotional plea, it's not
Yeah.
begging. It's
Right.
actually, like you said, or you captured that Trinity energy. Uh, I'm convinced that those silent prayers steered that situation, in
Yeah.
retrospect.
Yeah.
But yeah, and I know so many other stories, other people, but I like the way you explained it, where everything you considered everything in your field, and you didn't divorce yourself from any of it. You
Right.
just basically kind of said, all right, all the energy needs to go back to where it came from, kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Well, and that's kind of, that's really a path that I have continued upon. I found I had a lot of ancestors that were earthbound that were connected to me. And I did a podcast back in April, right after I released all this with Miriam at it was Awakened Aspects. And I was talking about how I had been I was trying or working to get energy out of my field that I knew wasn't mine. And when I would talk to different teachers about it or different healers, they would tell me I was rebuilding programs or whatever it is they say, just quit thinking about it. You're making it come back. And I knew it wasn't true. And what I found was I had a really difficult childhood. And one of the only memories that I really have of receiving affection was when I was a little girl. I was probably about 5, and my maternal grandmother was rubbing my hair when I was 6. I mean, when I was sick. And it's such a simple thing to think about someone rubbing my hair when I was sick, but like when I think back about, and I don't mean to say that my parents didn't hug me. I'm just saying I don't have memories of that. I don't have memories of being touched unless it was disciplinary. And so I know how much this grandmother meant to me. And when she left her body, when I was 8 years old, a part of me dissociated. And that part of me that dissociated, my grandmother attached to. And so that was one connection. The other thing is this particular grandmother, she lost her firstborn child when he was 4. His name was Sonny. And she, on her deathbed, she died of lung cancer, because where does grief go? And on her deathbed, she was still crying over Sonny because they had to bury him in a wooden box. They couldn't afford a coffin and a proper burial. And what happened is when he passed, he didn't cross and he attached to her at the womb. And so his material was enmeshed in her womb and all 3 of her daughters' wombs. And so I had his material in the womb with me. So I had his material and I had 4 other male souls at the womb with me. And so people would look at my, look at my energy and, trying to figure out how to really clear what was in my field. And they would, I had this one teacher that would say that I had a suppressed inner male child. And she said, you were made to be girly, you were made to wear dresses and all this kind of stuff. And I said, false. My dad called me the toughest boy in the neighborhood. I had a little brother who had a smart mouth, and anybody that touched him got whooped. And I was always digging him forts, and we climbed trees, and I wasn't a super girly girl. And what was suppressing my inner male child was Sonny's material and these 4 other male souls. And, so people would say, wow, there were a lot of beings at the womb with you and this kind of stuff, but they didn't unravel it. And what I realized is this enmeshment, it was so entangled with my grandmother, my uncle, who, this was her firstborn. She didn't have her next child for, however many years. And because my mom's oldest sister, I think, was 13 years older than her. And then she had a sister that was 7 years older than her, and Sonny was older than all of them. And so this bloodline was so entangled. And and I knew that this peace, I knew I was meant to find this peace and that it wasn't meant to be found by a teacher. And this one day, I mean, I walked up and down. You've seen we live in a forest, and our property backs up to national forest. And it was raining, and I was so really kind of exhausted. Uh, I had a friend email me this morning, and she was talking about spiritual exhaustion, and I said, I know that feeling so well. But I was walking through the forest in the rain. I'm drenched and I'm crying and I'm praying. And I'm not just praying for me and my bloodline, I'm praying for me and my ancestors and every ancestor, you know, across all time for humanity who has been enmeshed or entangled. I stood out there telling my grandmother, I'm so sorry about your baby, telling my uncle, I'm sorry that you were trapped here, that you didn't cross. And what was happening for me is one of the modalities I use is spiritual response technique, and you have to have no ego. Your ego has to be 1% or less. Otherwise, the system doesn't work. And I kept having my sessions co-opted. Like my ego would be really low, and all of a sudden I would feel myself in fight or flight. And I'm going, what in the heck is going on? What was this 8-year-old? It was this 8-year-old aspect of me that still had all the religious programming of being raised, in a church and by an evangelist and a gospel singer and all this. And, I'm sure she thought we were going to heck in a handbasket. But I could feel her in my face. And because I could feel her in my face, I felt her in my face in like my upper quadrant. And because I could feel her there, I knew it was an aspect of me. And what she was doing is every time my inner child was activated, it was turning off my inner adult archetype. And so if you look at the inner archetypes as being an operating system, your inner child is your first operating system. And at this same time, I was working with a client who has become a friend that I just love. And she's super smart, has her stuff together. But if abandonment was triggered, it was triggering her inner child because she had so many abandonment issues early on in life. It was triggering her inner child. And when I would work on her, I noticed that I would have to clear the inner child and then I would have to reactivate the inner adult. And that was such a light bulb to me. I'm like, okay, so when the inner child is activated, you don't have access to your tools because it is shutting down the inner adult. And so when you're in that place where you feel attacked or whatever it is, and you're going to fear, whether it's fear, abandonment, whatever it is that is triggered, whatever is triggering the inner child, the key is going to the inner child, closing your eyes, getting quiet, go into a void. I always have my clients go into a void, white void, golden light, and call, what aspect of me is here that needs healing.
Do you
Because
do you do you tend to experience or call in the traumatic events, or like when your grandmother was stroking your hair? Like do you ground in do you have to bring up the trauma, or does it arrive, or
it's not about bringing up the trauma, it's about finding the aspect. Who has
okay.
been traumatized? So I'm not really going into the trauma. It's who's here that needs to be loved up. And so, that little 4-year-old or the 8-year-old, telling the 8-year-old, I'm sorry you lost your Mimi.
Yeah, I can feel that. You're safe here.
Yeah, I know. And I know how much she meant to you. And I'm here now. And I love you and we're safe. And then just holding her and loving her until I felt her integrate, until she wasn't there anymore. And so it's not really about necessarily finding the trauma for me as much as it is finding the part of me that felt unsafe sticking around,
Mm.
right? The part of
Yeah.
me that I've sent away.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I'm just taking this all in and thinking about the client that you had,
Yeah,
the one that you would have to go in and do the same thing every time, right?
right,
And I'm just wondering, and I know we're the technology, and that's why these stories are so important, uh, because the retelling of them carries the code, even though it may not be explained in the conventional way.
right.
But I was just wondering, like, I'm sure that people, plenty of people could relate to working with their inner child. Um, you're talking about a client where the same thing was presenting itself each time. So obviously something wasn't cleared or something was going on there. I don't know. But like when you've worked with the 4 year old and the 8 year old and you've had these moments, uh, is it does it feel like it's brought into alignment? Does it
Yes,
feel complete and whole?
yes.
And do
And
you
so the,
and do you deal with any, I'm just curious because I think there's like it's like this would be like a program, I guess, and then patterns, right?
right,
Behaviors.
right.
Do you still in your with with your interactions with your clients and or with yourself, what happens when the old what used to trigger you is said to you or happens to you? Do you did you find yourself going back into the behavioral patterns that came from the inner the inner child deficit that you had?
So it depends upon, so if you are abandoned over and over and over, if you're abandoned at the womb, if you pick up abandonment at the womb, at birth, at age 3 months, at age one, at age, it's finding, um, and so we can come in with abandonment in our field too. We know that. You can come in with past life stuff with you all the time. But what I've found is so I didn't realize this client helped me realize what it was that was happening in that the inner child was turning off the inner adult. That was a huge piece for me. So once I recognized that was what was happening, I knew the inner child was the key. And so what I started doing as a result of this client is when that would happen, rather than just turning it back on for them, I would teach them how to go in and how to find which aspect of themselves needed that love. And I don't know how to explain it to somebody like on a mental level for them to get it until they experience it. But when you see that 6 year old or a 17-year old, it could be a 13-year old, it could be a 15-year old, right? When you see them, you know what they need. You just do. It wasn't your fault. You were perfect just like you were. We're safe now, or whatever. The words come because it's an aspect of you. And so it is just a matter of soothing these aspects of us to bring them back to wholeness. Now, does that mean that the 8 year old couldn't, pop up again? No, because if the 8 year old has been abused also and experiences abuse as an adult, it's going to come up with something else, right? So it's a matter of fight, and because, how many times was the 8 year old sent away in an unsafe situation? How many times, so
And they
it's
could be
it's
like different types of traumas, I guess, too.
energies, right? Yeah,
No, the obviously the collective awareness and capabilities and everything that goes with it is expanding rapidly.
right.
And I guess kind of like what I'm curious about, if you can speak to it and continue with the story both,
Mhm.
but is is there a threshold that we're crossing? If you've had instant healing, and we know other people have had instant healing or occurrences where instant manifestation occurs. We have flashes of it. Do you feel
Right.
like we're entering a space now where there's more permanency to it, where there's more of a multidimensional causation? In other words, it's not just like I'm just going to try to make up a bad example. I come in to see you. I've had some things happen, and I've got 5 incidents that popped up when I was 8 years old, and a couple more at a couple other ages. Um, can I address them all now? Is Is it something that, are you seeing any type of change in your clientele and your practice where the capabilities of yourself and or the client are evolving and expanding and becoming more powerful?
Massively. Yeah,
Yeah.
it creates a huge shift. And the difference in this particular client is night and day. Because, I made a video on my just on my YouTube. My YouTube, I just shared tips and kind of what's coming through in the collective, because I know based upon any week, if I see 10 people, they're all kind of orbiting around the same topics. It's really interesting. So I have this insight into what's coming up in the collective. And I made this video called The Plague of Narcissists, because what I recognized is what most people believe is a plague of narcissists is actually a plague of fragmented inner children. And we are purposely fragmented. We're fragmented by over sexualization of kids, by the way we're educated, by the foods, by the frequencies, all these things, right? Because when you think about it, it's so much easier to control a group of fragmented children than it is even a group of unhealed adults. Like, I want unhealed adults on my team, you know, 10 times out of 8 because they're scrappy, right? They haven't lost access to their tools. But in an inner child, you can take somebody that's brilliant and let them, experience something that triggers abandonment that they don't know they have in their field. And it will completely unravel their, what's coming through is facade,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because, yeah,
Mask. Yeah, you put on a mask to, well, you create another personality
right,
to deal
right,
with like that person or that thing. And you said something else. Yeah, I really like the way you explain this about the narcissism thing, especially coming on the heels of your story of healing and how you embraced, acknowledged, recognized, and blessed, and therefore released all those factors. Okay.
right,
So if I look at, because this is a real big topic for me with the work I do, because I've seen people over identify with being an empath and divorce themselves from any inkling that they might have narcissism, right? Or be
right,
narcissistic. The value here, I think, is in your story, is in the fact that what you're really talking about and explaining is the characteristic of the realm, because the realm itself is narcissistic. I mean, look at the
right. But is
government.
it really narcissistic, or is
Well,
it, well, who's a bigger narcissist than a child? I mean, really,
well,
right?
yeah, yeah. Well, that's
They
what I
want
mean.
all
It
the
be,
attention,
yeah.
everything's about me, this kind of stuff. And I'm not saying there aren't narcissists in society. I mean, I would, that would be a
Well, it's a whole,
massive,
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, no, no, I get what you're saying, and that's the thing. See, is like that. I don't know. It's so weird. There's such an inverse to it, but what I'm saying is to look at it, and it's not a bad word.
right,
It's not a bad thing. It's part of the makeup, a very base foundational part of the makeup of this realm, which is really the whetstone for us to hone our blade. This is the friction that we created and provided for ourselves, and I really feel like that type of dialogue is starting to come out with some other things as well as we become more transparent and move beyond vulnerability and have discussions like this. So I'm happy to hear what you're
right.
saying.
Well, and so when you have an inner child co-opting your conscious mind and you lose access to your tools, what do? You throw a tantrum, right? You just like, I need help. You throw a tantrum, you think about, and I think the reason this feels so impactful to me is because I can't tell you how many people that I have spoken to, that I know of. I know I've done it in the past myself, where you want to write people off as narcissists, like, oh, they're just a narcissist. Oh, they're just a narcissist, right? And if we can get to the point of not just writing everybody off, oh, they're a narcissist, and maybe looking at them and recognizing that mayhaps there is a fragmented inner child there that has co-opted the human, and they can't get to their tools, and I mean, if you hurt me, if you and I were friends and you hurt me and I'm looking at adult Todd that hurt me, it's going to be harder for me to get over it, right? But if I recognize that it's little Todd that didn't get invited to a birthday party when he was 4 and felt unworthy, right? That completely shifts things. And
That's
so for
powerful.
me, what's that?
I said that's powerful. Now that I go back to what you were saying in the beginning about who's the biggest narcissist, it's the child.
Right.
So this again is not like a defamation or throwing
Of a
shade on.
child, of course not.
But
Yeah.
the thing is it makes sense because if the tools aren't available, which was what created the trauma, or you know what I mean. I really see how that fits, and and this actually happened to me a couple of weeks ago. I've been dealing with a personality such as, and I also understood, and it was kind of there was some longevity to it, 3 or 4 months. Okay, and I also understood, given the energies and given my state, time and place, where I'm at, what's happening, that this mirror was extremely important, and it was extremely important for me to engage it to the best of my ability, right?
Right.
And toward the end, I got some great advice with somebody that was in the know that I had discussed it with, and they said to me, look at her as a child. Look at her as a little girl. And I did. And so
Right.
just what you said, I was like, it's all like coming in, it's all like falling into place. So then as things culminated, I I kind of, I guess you would say, stood confident in my power, said very little, and a couple of attacks came. And that's exactly what they were. They were like emotional outbursts, accusatory
Tantrums.
tantrums. And
Yeah.
so there was a couple of those. I ignored them, and life goes on. But I really see it differently now after getting that advice, experiencing it, and then listening to your explanation. It's I guess for me it was kind of like in deep in my heart, I was like, man, I wish we could like soften up this conversation and get people to open up to the fact that we're both. It's
Right.
okay.
Right.
Uh, but I feel like that's probably the reason that we do want to push away the thought that we've got anything like that going on with us.
Right.
It's the same thing. It's that
Right.
child. It's that
Totally.
child that was told that you're not good enough, or yeah, really, you're not worthy, or
Right.
you don't measure up, that kind of thing. Yeah,
Right.
good stuff.
Yeah, and so one of the things I had a we had our first retreat here in June, the first week of June, and three beautiful women from Florida came. It was a client that had referred two other women, and she reached out and she says, "We want to come have a retreat with you the first week in June." And it was funny because my youngest son had just moved out, like moved out 3 days earlier. And kind of unexpectedly, no hard feelings or anything like that, but just kind of unexpectedly. And so I was still reeling a little bit, from my baby moving out. But I had, these feelings like, man, is this the right thing for him to do? And but he's an adult, I mean, he's not a baby baby. He's 22. He's not, I have 35 down to 22. And but this gal calling me and saying, we want to come and have a retreat with you, I wouldn't have had space for them. But because my son moved out, I had a queen bedroom and a twin bedroom. I had just enough spots for three people, right? And one of the things that came through, because when I lead people into meditations, I mean, I have a general idea of, how we're going in and how we're coming out. I know I'm not a general idea. I have a good idea about that. But many times I just allow spirit to bring through what spirit is going to bring through. And at this retreat, what happened is I was prompted to take these women um, back through their lives, back through the womb, and back to each of their parents before they were ever traumatized, whatever age that was, whatever age they showed up. And everybody's parents showed up very young, right?
Yeah,
So,
that's a good barometer, isn't it?
right. So my
That's,
dad, you know, uh, uh, being physically violent with me as a child, I never really put any of that on him until I had my first child. And when I had my first child and I couldn't fathom, hitting her, that's when it really sunk in. Oh, that's not normal, right? That's not a normal thing. So where it might be difficult for me to reconcile a man beating a little girl, when I go back and I see him, at age 4, and I recognize that this being that was doing this, this is a fragmented human. This is a fragmented human that it's a hurt little boy. It's a little boy that was hit too. It's a little boy that felt unworthy. He ended up with polio when he was like 15. He had a big alcohol problem, and he and I worked together. I used to build furniture when my 30-year-old was young because I always wanted to do something where I could be home. I wanted to make money, but I wanted to be home for my kids. I didn't want them in daycare, basically. And so my dad and I worked in this furniture business, and he told me one day, he said, um, after I had polio, I didn't walk straight. And he said he went from oil field to oil field to oil field trying to get work because his parents expected him to work to provide for them. And so he kept getting turned down because of his funny walk. And he said one day I went and bought a bottle of whiskey at the end of the day. And he said, and then I just did it every day after that. And he said, I get up every day telling myself, or he said, I go to bed. No, I get up every day telling myself I'm not going to drink. And I go to bed every night hating myself because I did, right?
wow,
So
that's a vicious cycle.
right. This is a
Vicious cycle.
fragmented,
Yeah.
this is a fragmented man. This is a man who has sent so many parts of himself away that it was much easier for me to forgive. I went to that little boy before he was traumatized and I loved him up just like I would love up myself.
Yeah,
And, I can do
exactly.
that. I can do that in spirit with both of my parents.
Yeah. I think that's so important. And I think there's something in the water too. Again, another indicator of our expansion and expanding awareness. I know I had it's funny too, because doing all the shows over the years, there would always be these moments, and they're kind of funny, and people would be talking the right talk, and maybe the mother would come up and, the mother energy, the mother goddess, mother earth, whatever. And then they would say, but you don't know my mother. Like it doesn't apply to me. Right.
Right.
And we've all been there, right? We've all been there. Like when you had your first child and, and then you start to go, oh, wait a minute. This isn't okay.
Right.
But, and like everybody, we all have our stories. And in my case, my parents, they're 86 and 89 now, and they've been divorced over 50 years. And they had
Wow.
five kids. And plus another brother came with my dad's second marriage. So my point is that there's been a lot of wounded child interaction that not just in those individuals, and we know they came from, right, like you were saying,
Right.
but also, which is, we're not unique to this either, that imprint was then reproduced and replicated and rippled out into the family environment. So you have this whole
Right.
thing. So things kind of culminated. There was some issues, very serious issues of a serious nature, molestation and
Wow.
beyond, and involving uh, one of my children, right? And mine are the same range as yours, by the way, which is interesting. We're
Yeah.
36 to 22.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I really had to do some work. A couple of years went by. I went to, and I was, I was estranged from the family. I hadn't seen anybody for a long time, and been 6 years since my mother, and I think 8 years since my dad, and so went through the rounds and got to see everybody again before I came down to Mexico. And one of the big things for me was getting past the blame thing in regard to what I was talking about. And I did, and I eventually did. And once I got to Mexico, I had an experience in meditation, and it was a lot like what you said about your exercise. And I closed my eyes and I connected in communion, and I look up, and my mother and my father are probably about 25, 22, in love. And I remember seeing them in love. I
Yeah.
remember seeing them hugging and kissing before they go out dancing and stuff like that.
Wow.
So I look at them, and they're, you know, arm in arm and just in love. And I
Yeah.
knew at that point, I thought, okay, this is legit. Like I'm okay now. I can talk to these people, not have a problem. And then of course, it expands from there. If you have family like you do, you've got siblings, if it's rotten at the top, then it's going to bleed down, right? It's going to bleed down. So I think there's something to be said for people coming into these experiences now, because I can't be the only one, and you obviously have done the work. Uh, but it's not something you can fake. But I think that there's something huge about fully accepting the two halves of you,
Yeah.
basically, you know?
Well, and I want to be clear. I don't see my parents in real time. I go to be with my parents in a spiritual place because I believe because I know what I'm going to receive, for lack of a better way to put it. Um, I know that even though their personalities can't receive me, I know that on a spirit level we're good, if that makes sense. And so I love them, I pray for them, but I don't put myself in a situation to be harmed by them anymore.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I kind of had some of that occur as I was in that period of time, as I was having the visits and then making my way out the door. Um, and it happened again. Something happened, and uh, and I saw the pattern, and I was pissed off, and then I said, "Wait a minute, uh, this is on you, pal." You know, like if you hadn't gone into that loop, this old pattern, then this would have never happened. So it's similar to what you're talking about in the sense that you kind of physically might have to remove yourself,
Right.
but that's not a bad boundary. It's
No.
not even a real barrier. It's just that in the multi-dimensional makeup of the conscious mind, of the collective mind and its pieces, you're just putting things in the proper place. But that's a tricky road though.
Yeah.
It's like I like what you said too about that one modality where you have to be 1% or less ego. So
Yeah.
it's a really what that really means to me is you got to be brutally honest.
Well,
And
what it is you have to be neutral. And so when this 8-year-old was co-opting my conscious mind, she was in fear. She was in fear about, what I was doing, the modality I was using, all of that kind of stuff. So she needed to be soothed around that. But the reason, because we're not encountering anything that our spiritual being doesn't allow, right? That's a really important thing to remember. Because when you recognize that the highest aspect of you is allowing this to happen, right? I know I'm a powerful spiritual being. I know it. I know it with every fiber of my being. So then if I am experiencing something uncomfortable, I know that it's a gift. I know that there's treasure in it somewhere. I got to find the gold. I know that it's coming to show me something. There's something in my field that I can't see. So my spiritual being is allowing this thing to transpire so that I recognize, oh, I still have this fear in my field, or oh, I still have whatever it is, whatever the energy is. I still have unworthiness. Oh, there's still abandonment for me to work on, whatever, right? And when you recognize that nothing can come to you that isn't for your good, really. And I'm not talking about spiritual bypassing with everybody. "Ooh," I
no,
don't mean
you're
it.
talking about acknowledging that the point of it all is to the experience, is
The
to
universe is
right.
always working in my favor. I know this, right? I know it. I know it through every single thing I've been through. And when you were talking about folks that are like, well, you haven't met my mom. I mean, that was me. You were talking about talking to Travis, and Travis was raised by an I Ching psychic. His name was Bob, and he was amazing. He also passed in 22. My shamanic teacher passed who was one of my closest friends, Karen Joe. She passed on Easter of 22. And then Trav's dad passed in July of 22. And the first time I met him, he asked me about my parents. He said, "Tell me about your parents." And I was in a bitter place. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. But he said, "Tell me about your parents." And I said, "My dad was an alcoholic and my mom's a narcissist." And he said, "Huh, why do you suppose you picked them?" And when he said that, what I responded outwardly was, nobody would pick my parents. What I responded inwardly was, "Fuck you, Bob." It was like my first time meeting him. And that was
Yeah.
I'm like, how dare he? The unmitigated gall, right? But he was so right.
Yeah.
Of course
That's
I
what I meant. That's what I
chose.
meant about the experience thing, because
Yeah,
you start to look at these things, and, and that's what I was asking about, the current energy, the way things are now. How is it affecting? I've watched it kind of from the sidelines with practitioners just through the shows, right?
right.
You can see this evolution, plus you can kind of see it in yourself and so on. But this kind of happened to me a few days ago. I had what is today? Sunday?
Sunday.
I don't even know. Like,
I
I
know,
think
I
this is
know.
like Thursday, Friday, Saturday.
What year
There was
is
a
it?
40, there was a 24-hour period. I think it was Thursday, that I went wall to wall from like 8 o'clock at night to 8 o'clock the next night, and then another day of like, kind of spit and fire. But and it was strange. It wasn't something that normally happens to me. And so as I went into it, and these things, how these things will come up, right? All these things were coming up, and I'm looking at everything. Well, why am I remembering these things? And okay, what's going on with me right now? I'm kind of in transition. Maybe there's some pressure there. So I was trying to put everything together, and then I went to, and these weren't like teenage and younger. These were older.
Yeah.
Okay. And I went to several different, I'd say probably 7 or 8 different points and situations and actions and and things that, I wasn't fully proud of, or maybe I was ashamed, or why did I do that, or belittle myself, or whatever the case was. But then I start talking to that aspect of me.
Yes.
And I've heard people talk about this before, but it wasn't the same thing. And I tried to explain to somebody. I don't think I really did a good job of it, but what it was basically sitting down with that aspect and having this conversation and gaining the wisdom from that aspect of me. And what was behind it was what your father-in-law said to you. Basically, it was basically, this is what we chose.
Yeah.
This was part of the plan.
Yeah.
And here's the value. It
Right.
wasn't just it wasn't just stopping a loop either. It was like,
Right.
here's the value. Here's the nuggets of wisdom
Right.
that you could endure this, carry this with you, be conscious of it, see the implications of it, patterns, behaviors, etc. And now you know. And
Right.
now you know. And here's the goal. And in like one case, it was well, ultimately it was a greater sense of empathy. In other words, the lesson was, if you engage, you enable this narcissistic realms, codependent, kind of interactions, communications, etc. If you engage, you enable. So just don't engage, right? And I gave you an example that happened a week before, or really at the same time, which is what I chose to do in a different way. But yeah, what I love too about the conversations that are happening now too is it's real talk.
Right.
It's real talk. It's not, and not to take anything away from us, because we've all been there. You get blasted with downloads and channelings, and it's a challenge to the ego. Sometimes,
Right.
look
Yeah.
at me, look at what I can do. And I
Right.
think we're past that now. And
Yeah.
it's like telling the real story, having somebody sit here and tell a story, and the tears well up, and which was happening to me quite a bit in the last week as
Yeah.
I was having these shows. And it would just be a little something I might say, and then all of a sudden, oh my God, I better stop, because I'm gonna start bawling right now. So there's something to be said for the humans retelling in this expanded consciousness that we have, that we're sharing together now, all of us.
Yeah. Every instance in your life where you've been embarrassed, every instance in your life where you have felt ashamed, every instance in your life where you have been abandoned or even abandoned someone else, right? There's gold there. If there is something that you can't quite move past. I had this silly thing that when I was in maybe kindergarten, well, it wasn't kindergarten, it was maybe first grade. You know how they have the um, physical fitness thing, the presidential physical fitness thing, right? And they had asked us to do this thing where you run and you jump over this little bar they have and you do a somersault and you stand up, right? And so the PE teacher gets up there and he's like, "So who was able to do this?" And, every kid's raising their hand. And I'm like, and I mean, I could no more do it. I wasn't coordinated that way. I was good at a lot of sports and stuff like that, but I definitely was not the gymnast. And so everybody's
Well,
sticking their
you were
hand
more
up.
the you were more the boxer, evidently.
probably, yeah, that my little smart mouth brother.
MMA MMA fighter.
Yeah. So, but anyway, I stuck my hand up like everyone else. And so he put us all in a line because then we're going to do it in front of the whole little school, right? And and I mean, to my credit, I got up there. I didn't go slink back. I didn't go slink back in the back, but I went up there and I made a fool of myself in front of the whole school, right? And it's such a simple, a little thing, or it seems like a little thing. But when people would talk about embarrassing things, my mind would go back to falling in front of the whole school. And so I knew I had a piece of me left back there. And and so I was driving home this one day. I hate to tell this story twice, but I have talked about this before, but not to you and not to your audience. I was driving home from this osteopath appointment, right? And it's when I had a, a lot of ancestors in my field. I had an 8-year-old in my face. I had all this stuff, and I couldn't talk to my doctor about what it was. I mean, osteopaths are a little woo-woo, but probably not nearly what I am. And I was driving down the road, this country road going home, and there's this big, beautiful bell, like it looks like a Liberty Bell, and it's right out on the like kind of right out on the road, but it's in front of a business. And as I'm driving by, I have the thought, like, man, it'd be so easy to take that bell. And like that was the thought that came into my head. And immediately I'm like, that's not my thought. Like, I know that's not my thought. And so I said, Spirit, there's a part of me that just thought about taking that bell. And I released that part of me back to your care now. And as soon as I said that, I yawned, right? Parasympathetic nervous system, you know how you'll clear, you'll sneeze, cough, whatever. And as soon as I yawned, I went, "Oh, okay, okay. Spirit, there's a part of me that's still embarrassed about falling in front of the entire school when she was 5. And I released that part of you, part of me, back to your care now." I did this all the way home, and it's like probably an hour 20 home. But I just allowed whatever was coming up. I released the part of me that's afraid to drive home on this winding mountain road because I knew it wasn't really me. It wasn't authentically me because I love road trips. I love these mountain roads. And so whatever was coming up, I knew that it was being brought into my awareness. So because it's not authentically me, it's some kind of programming, some kind of trauma, some kind of limiting thought, behavior, pattern that just needs to be released. And
So
so,
true.
yeah, so that's what I did. I did it all the way home. And by the time I got to the bridge, I felt so free and so clear. I mean, because stuff quit coming. I quit being able to think of things I was embarrassed about or ashamed of or still caught up in. Um, if you have a song that you can't listen to without getting emotional, you've left a part of yourself back in something connected to that song. So when that comes up, you just sit and you get quiet and you say, who've I left behind with this song?
Yeah, that's good stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think it's important too, going back to what you said, and kind of reconnecting it to the what you mentioned about that you weren't in that example, and you were right. You weren't spiritually bypassing, and the reason I'm bringing it up is because it seems like that we're at the level now where the it's becoming it's becoming obvious to us, like when we get triggered, when we project, when we're pissed, whatever the case is, or listen to a song. Like this information is coming to us now. And I've see I've seen one navigation system where it's kind of like, let's keep everything calm, let's keep everything calm and everything, or, and just in the right place. And to me, that was maybe in between bypassing and what we've arrived to now. So it's kind of like, that's not going to work anymore.
Yeah,
It's not going to work anymore because the popcorn popper is popping, and
right.
so these things are being shown to us. And,
They're
and and
coming
and
hard and fast now.
yeah, they are. And yeah,
And
they yeah,
consequences are coming hard and fast. Like it's almost like the ability to spiritually bypass is being removed.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I
It's getting too
agree.
loud. And the other thing, I think a huge part of this, I think a huge part of this transformation now, presently, is true empathy and
Yeah,
compassion. Like we talk about this stuff as light workers and all this. Oh yeah, fluffy light, and love and light, love and light. No, 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 no. I'm talking about real empathy, where you can
right,
go to your parent that abused you and you can put yourself in their shoes
right,
because they're you.
right.
And then the other thing for me is I always had a hard time. I've never been like a official practitioner. This is how I do my work. But there
Right.
was a time, especially early on, where I was being led to people and doing sessions with them and stuff. And one of the problems that I had was I would hit them right between the eyes, with the info. Boom, and it was too radical. It wasn't compassionate.
Right.
It's kind of like, hey, get over it thing. And
Rub
that's
some
another
dirt in it.
thing, right? It's another thing I've learned. And the way I've learned this is that it's not just the deaths, you know, or the tragedies, or those types of, seminal moments of uh, pain and suffering that happen around you or to you. It's the little things that you're talking about, like the thing about the presidential fitness thing. For
Yeah.
me, for me, it was and I just solved this less than a year ago. But I was probably about 6 or 7, and my mom took me to get some clothes, and I didn't, like a 6-year-old boy who doesn't take care of his stuff. I didn't have any underwear, so I just put some jeans on. I didn't know what was going to happen,
Yeah.
and so I ended up. She says, "Oh, I want to buy you some whatever jeans. I think it was jeans." And so I went into the dressing room, and I didn't have any underwear on. And you know how mothers are. She
Yeah.
opens the door, let me see, and I'm buck naked there, and it lit me for up until about a year ago. I'd go with my wife. We'd go, to get me some clothes when we got to Mexico, and she would be like, "Come out and show me." I'm like, "No, don't ask me to do that. I just can't." And then so she started saying, "Well, why can't you do it? Why can't you do it?" And then I ended up telling her about it, and eventually I was okay with it. I've just come out, but yeah, and so you think sometimes, or I did, that it was these huge moments that my children, a couple of my children's mother died tragically, or so many other things that it could be, you know, but it's not necessarily the case because the imprint on that child, I think embarrassment is probably as powerful as shame.
Yeah,
I mean,
totally.
I noticed that
Well,
like with the work.
embarrassment leads to shame, right?
Well,
I'm
yeah.
so ashamed that that happened, you know.
Well,
Um,
you become self-conscious. Like the work I do, I'm always been pretty comfortable like speaking to public speaking, but when I start to play music with my friends, that's more their forte. And then I become self-conscious, and so you're right. It starts to become like a snowball thing. But I think that's another thing I'm noticing is the self-consciousness or the lack of self-consciousness in being who we are.
so
You know,
something you said last week that I have thought about over and over is what you were saying about, behaving in a way, behaving like nobody's watching. And it's funny, my girlfriend, and you've had her on your show. I have to tell you, I saw that we had
who is it?
Jade Rader.
Oh
I
yeah.
saw that we had her in common. She's here locally. Like when I told you I have a vibrant, wonderful healing community around me, she's one of the wonderful beings,
Yeah,
right?
we've
She's one of
we've
the people
we've
that was
done it.
at my,
That's
yeah,
right.
that was at my house for the equinox when we were singing the
Oh,
house off its
she
foundation.
was actually going to come on like 3 months ago, but she something happened. She couldn't come on. But
Yeah,
yeah, we
she's amazing. I
yeah
love her.
yeah.
But man, I lost it. Oh, the like nobody's watching. So Jade popped me a note and she said, "Hey, do you want to go to this?" And it was this improv class. And she said, it's really good for public speaking. And I guess she sent it to me and a couple other people. Well, I responded back to her, yeah, and she didn't see it. And so I showed up at an improv thing. It was a month ago. I showed up at an improv thing thinking Jade and I were going to meet at this improv thing. And I showed up and she didn't come. And so I was sitting there and I mean, had I known, because I live a little farther out, I'm about a half hour outside of Florence because we're in the sticks. And but anyway, I was very tired that morning, so I probably wouldn't have gone. And I definitely wouldn't have gone to an improv thing without, a wing girl for sure. But I showed up, I sat there with, it was 15 people besides me and the teacher, and I'm like, you know what? I don't know any of these people. It's fine. And I'd never done theater or anything like that. I had to speak. I've been a VP of sales and a national director and a this and a that. So I've had sales reps that I would have to go and speak to, but it's different. But so it's not so much public speaking, but public acting a fool is a completely different thing, when you're improving things. It was so freeing, Todd. I have been a closet songwriter for so long, and it was interesting because, like, the next video, I may have even made a video that day where I was talking to folks that follow me about the alchemy of singing because I can go down and sing to the river. I can sing. Travis and I were sitting on, I call it Table Rock, out in the middle of the river on a hot summer day. We were sitting there and there was a leaf like way upstream coming down and it's all the way on the other shore. And I decided I was going to get it to move against the current, like across instead of coming this way. So I decided I was going to get it to move, and it did. It came and it went across and it came through these two rocks. I tried to get it to come through. So I told Travis what I was doing. I said, watch this little leaf boat because that's what it looked like to me. And so I started singing, little leaf boat, come my way, right? And he's used to me singing crazy stuff. But I'm singing to this leaf boat. This leaf boat, my intention was to get it to come under his legs. He had his legs sitting out, and I was going to try to get it to come up under his legs, but it didn't. But it came all the way across the river, skimmed across the front of his shins and into my hand. I have a song that I sing about rainbows that brings rainbows where rainbows shouldn't be. I've had a rainbow on a beach with me for an hour that didn't go away. I've had rainbows show up at a cider press 10 minutes before I got there and I started singing it 10 minutes on my way in and the rainbow stays the whole time, right? So singing is alchemy. When we were talking before you hit record and you were saying you couldn't stand to hear your voice, that's a program because our voices are meant to heal our beings. We talked about, the big churches, the bells and the acoustics. The Catholic Church didn't build the Vatican. These buildings, these old world buildings are inherited and they were put on these sites. I get that the energy's been inverted now, but they were built upon these powerful sites because the builders of them knew how to work with energy. And you would go into these buildings and you would sing, or you would hear the bells, you would hear the music, and it would heal you, right? And so singing is alchemy. So that day I went there, I acted a fool with 15 other people I didn't know. It was some of the most fun I've had in a while. And came home and was able to make this video where I told people about what I do, like how I sing. I go down and I sing to the river. I was singing this one day. I told Travis, I made us both a smoothie and I said, I'm going to go to the river. Spirit's telling me to go to the river. And he said, all right. So I went down there and sat with my smoothie, and there was a great blue heron hunting kind of on the shore, a little upriver from me. And I finished my smoothie and I just started singing to the river, calling in love. I'm calling in love, sweet love, high and holy love. And so I'm singing that. And as soon as I start singing, this great blue heron grabs this, I mean, big fish, because the salmon run in our river. We have trout in our river. We have every kind of fishing. And the great blue heron catches a salmon. And as he catches it, a mama otter comes up at his feet, and a bald eagle comes in hot with his, I mean, it was like a Nat Geo moment. I can't even, I wish I could share it. I wish I had
You
it on
can't make that
film.
shift up. You can't make that shift up.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
it's the real, it's
But
real.
yeah, and I can sing to the river and get the river to change its course and the water to come to the side with me. I can go out into the forest and sing and have every kind of bird come to me. Um, and our deer here they follow me through the forest like forest puppies. So singing is alchemy. Your voice is your creative power put to resonance, like put to
I totally,
harmony.
I totally agree with you. I've
Yeah,
always felt that the voice is the central, well, like expression or whatever. It's the one chakra that contains physical and non-physical properties, right? Because,
yeah,
right, and what I was saying about putting out snippets of the shows, and I don't like to put them out if I'm singing. Uh, it's not that I don't like it. I don't know. I guess it goes back to embarrassment and shame. But what I have done is over the past, I don't know, 5 years. I think it started in 22. I sat down with my friend Ty, who's a master musician, among other things, and another musician who was a guitar player, a street player from Venice Beach, and we did a studio session. And I've written a lot, so I just
yeah,
pulled a couple things out and I just went for it. And you're right, it was so freeing. And then I've
yeah,
done, we do it about once a week now, and it's all improv, right? I
yeah.
mean, sometimes I'll read words that I've written, but a lot of it's just freestyle. And so you might spend an hour, hour and a half, and you'll get, three or four nuggets, right? And sometimes at night, when I'm kind of communing, with myself, or, you know, seeking that kind of which we're talking about, I'll play these old songs, these clips from when I was and it wasn't just me either. It was the triad of the three people, or the way that the musicians meshed everything. It's weird. There's a psychic phenomena to it. There's a
It's
higher
alchemy.
sensitivity to it.
It's
Yeah,
alchemy.
it's incredible. And
Yeah.
so for me, it's kind of like with the grandmother rubbing your hair. So for me, I'll go back to those moments, and I might listen to six or seven of them, in an evening, to re-entrench myself. And it's not pride. It's really
No.
more like humility. It's like,
Yeah.
wow, okay, how can I do this again? Or I want to do this again. But yeah, I think the voice in particular, melody, or even
Harmony.
phrasing, yeah,
Yeah.
harmony. It's incredible. And then when you're doing it like you did it with the improv group, and you're doing it, and everybody's on that wavelength.
Yeah.
Nobody has anything structured, you know.
Yeah.
It just comes out. It's powerful. You know, I said for years on the show that we are adding frequencies to an ever expanding vibration in the spirit of spontaneity, intuitiveness, creativity, imagination, and courage. Like that's how I feel. Like I feel like, you know, this is how we show up. And like what I was talking about with, you know, reflecting on the shows this year and how I've noticed this difference in myself and the people is they're being real, which in
Yeah.
itself, that's that, like, you know, like I said last week, what you brought up, you know, act like nobody's watching you,
Right.
you know?
Well, and this goes back to what I said to you before we hit live too. It's so if I am asking, because Travis and I, and he can tell you his story, but Travis and I have had so many of our, friends or family that have fallen away. And so we ask Spirit, bring us our tribe, bring us friends here, bring us, right? And so if I am operating from a place of inauthenticity, if I am inauthentic, and I am putting on masks and I'm not letting people know that I go sit out the river and sing to birds or any of the stuff, or that I had a thought about taking a bell, whatever it is that's come up, right? If I am inauthentic, then I am going to be attracting more inauthentic people, or more people that are not going to desire to be around and with the true me. And I'm over inauthenticity. I'm over inauthentic people. Um, I love real people. I love people that feel free to be themselves, that will, I laugh sometimes because people will say stuff to me. I said to Travis, I don't know if I had people confess to me in a past life or whatever it is, because people will say stuff to me that will shock me. And I don't mean it from a place of judgment, but I'll think, man, did they know they're saying that out loud right now to me? But it's probably because I have that energy of accepting my own authentic self.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. You know,
Yeah,
I think we've gotten to the point now where, yeah, we've first and foremost in house, we've said, you know what, I'm not going to be unauthentic. I'm not going to lack authenticity. I'm not going to
right,
do that to myself anymore. So yeah, you're like a tuning fork, and boom, so these people walk up to you and become authentic, or
right.
more authentic. I think that we're authenticating. There's
Yeah,
always an ing, like it just keeps getting better and better. But this improvisational quality, this spontaneity thing, this stepping up, and you could say fearlessly. I always say fearlessly, but I doesn't mean I'm not scared. Like, you know,
right,
if I start to think, if I'm making music with Ty, and I start to think, everything goes away. You just
right.
start stepping all over your tongue. But if I just let it go, uh, and you know, which is strange because for me, I've been public speaking since I was, you know, basically my whole life. And but when it comes to doing something like that, or like you did, that's a little bit different. So, but I feel like that what you talked about at the beginning of the show obviously had something to do with my own hesitance and embarrassment and self-consciousness when it comes to like hearing my voice, or you know, or performing. And I
Yeah,
guess that's how it works for everybody, you know, when you think about it. I guess everybody gets butterflies, and I've noticed that too. I've noticed that there's always this, not in a bad way, but there's always this little bit of nervous, a little bit of
yeah.
tingling going on, and then sometimes it releases, the alchemy hits and it releases, and you're like, whoa. Like we did a show, I think it was last night, the night before, and I think it was like an hour and a half. And it was like, it was crazy too, because we'll do a music show, but every now and then we'll do a talk show because he's the only astrologist I understand, and he's many other things. He's very, very well versed in a lot of things, Toltec religion and ancient traditions and such.
Amazing.
So, so we texted, and I said, "Hey, let's do a talk show. I want to pick your brain. Let's pick the brain about astrology, Three Eye Atlas, and see where you're at.
Yeah.
Whatever." So, about 15 minutes before we were set to meet, I'm in the kitchen, and I thought to myself, "You know what? I should tell him to have the music ready." And then immediately I heard him, right, say, "I already got you." Right. So I'm thinking, okay, well, maybe I'm crazy, maybe whatever. I get on. As soon as I get on, he's got the music going. And I told him I told him,
Yeah.
what I just told you. And he said, well, I don't know what's going on, but something's happening. It's like something just took over. So, and so then
Telepathy.
we had a great session. It was as smooth as any that we've ever done. It was all new stuff, right? It was just all improv. And but again, there's something. It's not just us, the individual. It's like we won't accept a lack of the authenticity within ourselves, and then that's what we attract. Or we have the courage to go in a little bit further. Both he never sang, even though he's a master musician, instrumentalist. But with the technology and stuff, and I can remember going back a couple of years ago, he was as scared as I was. you
Yeah.
know we were just showing our ass basically. But I think that's another way to say I am soul. Because
Yeah.
you do you're butt naked to the soul, and you step into the arena. Well, that's what we're doing. The whole
Yeah.
universe is watching us, and
Right.
that's not just a pretty statement. I mean, we are the boots on the ground developing code with their assistance and facilitation.
Well,
We're gonna have to do. We're gonna have to do. Huh?
when you're talking about, authenticity and what you attract, as we forgo spiritual bypassing, as we heal our inner children, as we release limiting beliefs,
Yeah.
projections, behaviors, all these kind of things, right? What we're doing is we are becoming a more coherent field. And when I was releasing all of these ancestors, I got to this place where, because what happens is when you have somebody that becomes earthbound, they fragment, depending upon how long they've been earthbound, they fragment further and further. And as they fragment, they're attracting other beings that are also earthbound, that carry the same energies. And it ends up being a demonic cord.
Mm,
And so I had so much, I mean, my teacher told me at one point that I had 99 digits of beings with me.
wow.
Not 99 beings, 99 digits, right? And I remember saying to her, that sounds about right, because that's how interfered with I felt. But what I did, because how do you clear that, right?
Mm,
So what I did is I called upon the intelligent energy of love. And I asked the intelligent energy of love to go through my field, all of my bodies, all of my minds, and to find anything that had forgotten it was love, and to
mm,
hold on to it and not let it go until it remembered it was love. And when I did that, Spirit told me that I was in I think it was the coherent field of love or something like that I feel like that's what it was. But what I recognize is as we become more coherent, we really are that tuning fork. And every being around us, every being that interacts with us is being pulled into that state of coherence. As we are more authentic, we give the people around us we give them permission. I don't mean like we're saying, okay, you can be authentic too, but they say to themselves, if they can be authentic, we can be authentic too. And
Yeah.
so it really is this like rippling out of
Yeah.
love, of coherence, of authenticity throughout the field. Because anything that arises in us, there's only two energies ultimately, it's love and fear.
Mm.
So anything that shows up that is not love, that is not coming from love, we know is a program, a projection, etc., right?
Yeah.
And so
Exactly.
it's a matter of naming it and then saying, Spirit, here's this thing that isn't love.
Mm.
And I release it to your care now. That's not spiritual bypassing, that's the work. That is, see it, witness it, name it, hand it over.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
as we do that, it really does, it ripples out into the field.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the way I've seen it. That's been a real pleasure to see with Soulogy. Even going back to the early days. Before the videos. I used to do spirit walks.
Yeah,
Back when this would be like 15. Um, yeah, 15, 2015, and then probably started to do shows. I probably did 1,000 videos before I ever did a show. But my point is that as the group page was expanding, it was done through words, and then it was became images, and then I noticed other people started doing it. But then when I started doing these individual videos, other people started doing it, right? They
yeah,
started, and I still watch them today. I have a beautiful sister that lives in California, Yvette Booker, and she's like a TikTok queen now, man. I mean, everything I see, she's got thousands of people watching her. And I remember back in the day, watching her come out, and you're right, it's that contagion. Now, the energy now is obviously lessening and lessening as far as distortion goes.
yeah.
It's more reciprocal. It's more instantaneous. It's more
Harder to
powerful.
hide.
Yeah. Yeah. And see, that's another thing about authenticity. If you are going to put yourself out there now, then you really don't have much of a choice because people can, the energy is such that we can see what we see now. Like
Right,
if it's not real.
right,
And not to condemn anybody because just to make the effort. It's a microcosm of this whole life.
right.
We stepped into this not knowing what we were getting into to the extent that, you could only know that by having the experience. And what do we do? We step out there and we sometimes we're a hero and sometimes we're a fool, but I believe they're the same thing, right?
Yeah,
We volunteered, we came for the right reason, for ourselves, for each other, for the collective, for the universal. We're gonna have to do this again.
yeah, let's do
I don't know
it.
how I don't know how the hell hour and a half goes by. Hour 40 minutes. Uh yeah, let me touch base with you in the next couple days
Yeah,
and maybe see about Travis as well, and if you're up for it, I don't want to be
sure.
presumptuous. Okay.
Yeah, for sure. And I know he would be too. We had I don't know, do you know who Damian Wynn is?
No.
He does really interesting work, and it's something he said to us a long time ago. And I told Travis recently, I said, I know, because Travis and I will work together too. We have a webinar coming up where we're, both working together with the group. But there's something to be said for that too. One of the gals that came to our retreat, one of the gals in particular, I felt like she was going to receive something just being here in our home with us. Because, and not from an egoic place, we have a beautiful relationship. And I knew, I call it spiritual go fish, what we do, right? So you and I, every time we connect, we're doing spiritual go fish. I'm going, I've got some inner child healing, and you're like, I've got some,
Mm.
that's what our high selves are doing. That's what I call it, spiritual go fish. And so I knew she was going to spiritual go fish when she got here, and she just sent me a note because she's been desiring to call in her divine union. And she sent me a note yesterday saying, he's here, and it's caught me totally off guard. And we've known each other for 15 years. And like, it was such a beautiful thing. And so I know at some point, Travis and I are going to be doing that kind of stuff together, being together and transmitting that, um, those divine codes. I don't know how to
Well,
describe it.
you're already started it. I mean,
Yeah.
there's like we were talking about, I think on our show and some of the other shows about the way people are relocated these last 2 or 3 years, where they're positioned. There's a
Right.
couple that I've had on. They're from Ireland or Scotland, and the similar situation. They knew each other when they were younger. I think they're about 50-ish now. And anyway, they went through the whole thing and they moved to Ixtapa, Mexico. And I had them on. I'm gonna have them on again end of the month. But and they talked about yeah, we went through the grind. We're still going through it. We're still, that's, I think that's one thing that people don't understand about these relationships is that there's much work or more than the individual one.
Yeah.
It's just, it's just expanded. But that was their thing. They said, we are in alignment with our aspects. Yeah, we're still human, this and that. We moved to Ixtapa so we can create that monadic environment.
Yeah.
In other words, I see that's what you're doing. I see other people doing it, and I feel like that the way these things are going to look is nothing like we think. It won't be like an expo or a conference,
Right.
it'll be more like a festival, or the whirling dervishes pulling in town and circling the wagons, and you got the art and the food and the music and the dance and the fellowship.
In community, in
Yeah,
community.
yeah,
Like
exactly.
that's what I keep hearing, and it's funny. My friend just, I've never had gene keys or human design or anything like that done. And I have a friend that I'm trading with right now, trading work with, and she sent me that just last night, sent me my human design stuff. And it was talking about how I'm to build community. And that is another thing that's come through like every reading. Like I see you surrounded by, groups of people. I see you talking about cities of light and this kind of stuff. And before when that was said to me, I was thinking, I don't think so. I like my
I don't I
space.
don't
I
like
like,
people. I don't
yeah,
like people.
that sounds very people-y to me. I called myself an introverted extrovert, because if I have to speak to somebody, I can speak to anybody. I can find common ground with anybody. And the reason I can is because I've been through so much shit. I
Yeah.
mean, that's the thing.
Yeah.
That's the thing about all of the stuff that we've been through.
Well,
It
that's
gives
the
a point of
yeah.
reference for other folks to then connect with us, for us
Well,
to
that's it. It
connect
goes
with
back to
them.
what you were saying earlier, the way you started the show, and even what I was saying about going back and talking to these aspects of me recently,
Yeah.
but not in the sense of, oh my God, it wasn't like that. It was like the kingly version. The only thing that was standing in the way was my perception of myself as that aspect.
Yeah.
I mean, so this is, and I love what yeah, we could just go on and on, but
Yeah, yeah.
I've got to go
I know you've got other
do a
things you do.
couple of things. Yeah. But yeah, I will reach out to you uh, in the next day or two, and I just want
Sounds
to say
good.
thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for holding space for such beautiful conversations. And you and I both know that there's a lot that happens when we will come together like this and hold space and be
Yeah.
authentic.
Yeah,
There's
no
a,
doubt.
it ripples out. Yeah.
Yeah, and no doubt. Yeah, I've been very active in the dream state this past week too. It's been like mind blowing.
Yeah.
It's just like
I've been in a fight with sleep for about 2 weeks now. My son was saying something about the time change, and
yeah.
my first thought was, oh, good, another hour to lie in bed awake. Spirit clear it. I don't want to call that in for myself, but yeah, sleep and
Spirit
I've been in
clear it.
a fight.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah,
Well, you
sleep
take
and I are
care. I'll
in a
talk to
fight.
you soon. Thank you so
You
much
too.
for coming in and sharing space with us, honoring us with your presence. And thank you
Thank
everybody for
you.
joining us. We got a big
Thanks,
week this week.
everyone.
Yeah. Thank you very much. We got a big week this week. Thank you for the love, support, and contributions. Allow us to keep doing this every day. But stay tuned. I'm posting up all the shows for this week, and there's quite a few. So it's going to be exciting.